Come on up, brother Deric Muhammad. Let's give it up, y'all. All right, man. Welcome to Real Talk.
Man, it's an honor to be here as always, brother.
Man,
always a pleasure to sit down with a real one.
Already, man. I appreciate that, man. So I kind of want to talk about this press conference that you all had on yesterday.
Yes, sir.
And kind of just to bring everybody somewhat up to speed, and you can fill in the gaps. Young man Stephen Coleman.
Yes, sir. Yesterday we were honored to stand with the family of Stephen Coleman, and just to kind of bring the Real Talk junkies up to speed. Stephen Coleman was a Katrina transplant who moved from New Orleans to Baytown, Texas, and he made a life for himself there after Hurricane Katrina. Mm-hmm. Back in 2017.
African American.
Black man. Yes, sir. Black man. He was also a rap artist.
Okay.
And a hard worker. So back in 2017, he had some kind of a disagreement with his girlfriend. It wasn't a physical disagreement or anything of that nature. He was trying to, break up with her. Mm-hmm. He was trying to move in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And while he was asleep, and please forgive the graphic details, but I think it's necessary that we share it. While he was asleep, she put a shotgun to his head and shot him in the head. She blew his brains out. Mm-hmm. And after she did this...
This is in Baytown.
This is in Baytown, Texas. Mm-hmm. Now, this is taking place during Hurricane Harvey.
Oh, wow.
So if you don't necessarily remember this particular case, it's because we were so focused on hurricane recovery that we missed it.
Right.
So
this is 2017.
This is 2017, yeah. August 2017.
August 2017, yeah.
Right. So while we were focused on recovery for Hurricane Harvey, she had put in a missing persons report for Stephen Coleman. She meaning Sierra Sutton, his girlfriend at the time.
Now, how old was Stephen at this time?
He was in his early 30s, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. And not only did she shoot him in the head and kill him, she took a machete and dismembered him. She went to Walmart. She used his credit cards to purchase garbage bags, a machete, and other things that she used to dismember him. And she took different parts of his body parts and dropped them off in different dumpsters around the Baytown, Texas area. Mm-hmm. And she reported him missing. Now, she was riding around with his mother and brothers, passing out flyers, looking for him.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe about a week later, a worker was moving some trash in a landfill in Baytown, Texas, and they noticed a torso.
Yeah.
Right? They recovered the torso, ran the test, and figured out it was this man. Yeah. All it was a torso. Yeah. They never found the other
parts of the body.
Ever, right? And it was determined that it was him. They figured out that she was the one that committed the act, and she subsequently was later tried in the Harris County Court of Law and given 45 years in prison.
Yeah.
All right. Now, shortly after the murder, networks like TV One, VH1, True Crime Daily, and others began running these different episodes on the death of Stephen Coleman, right?
Like a fictional reenactment, or not fictional, but a reenactment, but these are not the individuals.
Well, it's branded as the true crime genre.
Yeah.
And because America was built on bloodshed, America was built on murder, axe to Native Americans, it's almost like it's in the social DNA of American citizens to be addicted to this kind of thing. You have folks who sit around all day long and they binge watch murders. They have Facebook groups called My Favorite Murder. When you look at the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix, it was the highest grossing show on Netflix and probably still is. So folks are fascinated with this thing. So Mrs. Coleman, Corla Coleman, the mother of Stephen Coleman, was laying across her bed one day thinking about her son, and her television just happened to be on. And she heard his name. And she looked up and she saw that a television show called Fatal Attraction have been produced about his murder.
Yeah, and this is on VH1, TV1.
That was TV1.
TV1, yeah.
Then came another one called Raining Blood. And now she's getting phone calls from the community asking, why would you let them talk about your son like that? They were blaming her for the horrific things that they were saying, which were untrue about Stephen Coleman. And so now you got to understand, imagine if somebody called you and told you that your son was missing. And then they told you that they found his torso in a landfill. And all that you have to bury of your son's remains
is a torso.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all she's got, right?
My Lord.
Imagine the type of toll that will take on your mental health, your emotional well-being,
and
right?
You're saying people are calling, and I can imagine not only were they saying, why would you let them talk about your son like that, they probably were thinking that she was trying to capitalize monetarily on the situation.
The public
at that time.
The public is of the mind that in order for you to do a story on a deceased human being that made the news to that level, that they have to get an okay from the family.
Yeah, permission.
But you don't.
Yeah.
The First Amendment gives these television production companies the right to tell any story that they want without the family's consent. And so there are so many inaccuracies and inconsistencies. They've made this lady look like she was some unfit mother who didn't raise her child right, because you know they got to sensationalize it in order to sell it to the public.
Right.
And you know, his murder was one of those that it was almost like it was already a movie.
Yeah.
So what do the networks do? Hell, so-and-so made 5 million, 10 million off of it. We're going to make one too. And they just keep reenacting and redoing the same murder over and over and over again with no consideration for the prison that you're putting the family in. Because if they had a chance of getting over it or putting it behind them, every time she tries to put it behind her, you put it right back in front of her face. And so as Black people in America, our pain has always been their entertainment. And so when I spoke with this woman, I just was so compelled to pull together some support for her, to try to help her and to give her a voice. She hasn't spoken about this in 5 years. But yesterday, she got the opportunity to finally speak her piece. But it's a big problem where corporations put the dollar before the humanity of human beings, but particularly of for Black people, and there's no legal recourse.
Let me ask you this, Deric. Such a sad story. In the press conference, you say she was able to speak her piece. These things have been produced already.
Yes, sir.
And there are some that I guess are planning to be produced going forward. What is it that she wants? What would she like to have happen now that they have been produced, or now that they're even considering doing further? I think you said VH1 reached out.
She only wants some level of respect to be put on her son's name. She wants them to stop trying to tell his story without her input, right? And she just wants them to stop telling the story anyway, because that's the only way that she and her family will ever be able to heal, bro. I mean, just imagine if something traumatic happened in your life, and every time you try to go to therapy, every time you try to pull yourself, back together, or maybe forget about it, or put it out of your mind for a moment, somebody else comes back and reminds you and re-traumatizes you of this particular thing. That's like being in the prison. And I mean, when you consider the gravity of the horrific nature in which this man was murdered, man, leave these people alone. Leave these folks alone. And that's all we're saying to VH1, TV1, and all of the others who are planning to make documentaries about this man's murder, man, have some kind of dignity, some kind of humanity, and leave these people alone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very sad situation, and I mean, like, this happened, 5 years or so ago, a little over 5 years ago, in a couple of months, and like you say, she's having to relive this over and over again, not being able to have celebrate Thanksgiving with her son,
right?
But yet these images and these videos continuously are bombarding her and her family, and like you say, trying to get closure, trying to be, even if you do, like you say, put that Band-Aid over the wound. It's such a gaping wound that is really just constantly being ripped off,
right? And
there's no opportunity to gain healing and whatever. But I mean, how do you stop it? I mean, like you just talked about the sensationalism, you just talked about the money that's being made, you just talked about the First Amendment. So, in sending a message, what message can we send that maybe they would find empathy for? Because to me, it's the same thing to a degree, Brother Deric, as remember when Brother Joshua Wood,
yes, sir.
Woods was murdered
for his Jordans,
his Air Jordans, and you with Miss Daisy Williams, his mother, you did the press conferences and walked with her for years, and we reached out. I did stories, reached out to Nike, and she even submitted that article to Nike and tried to send it directly to Mr. Michael Jordan, and he called her.
That is correct.
Michael Jordan called her.
He sure did.
And she pleaded with him to stop selling the Jordans the way that they were doing it on this ticket lottery system.
Right.
And putting a limited amount out.
Right.
And it fell on deaf ears. And so even when you see and have statistics and show, even if we were able to prove by way of how this impacts people like, Steve Coleman's mother, what message can we send is what I'm trying to ask.
It's a very good question, my dear brother. I think what we can do is focus on what is within our power. In the religion of Islam, we're taught that when you see an injustice, there are three ways for you to handle it. Either you change it, you lift your voice against it, or you just hate it in your heart. But we are taught that to simply hate it in your heart is the weakest approach. Since we don't necessarily have the power to change it, then we must lift our voices against it. We must expose these vultures for who they are and not fear any type of repercussion or reprisal. So us exposing to the public what is happening is the first step, right? But a lot of times what I learned, Brother Jeff, in helping our people, sometimes even if you don't have the power to change their situation, just them knowing that somebody cares about how this makes them feel. You should have just seen the tears that Corla Coleman shared on yesterday. Yes, they were tears of grief, but some of them were tears of relief. Because she finally found a group of people that she felt comfortable with to be able to share her story, that were not looking to exploit her. So that is the approach that we're taking right now. We want to get as many people on board, educated, and involved as possible as it relates to what is happening to the families of these victims. And I want to say to those of us who like to watch these types of, murder series, Fatal Attraction, and things of that nature, when you watch this stuff, you're only adding fuel to the fire for them to want to produce another season. Always be conscious of the fact that there's somebody suffering behind the scenes. There's a mother behind the scenes who may never be the same, brother. Sometimes, man, I see mothers lose their children. And you may see them, you know, in January. 6 months later in June, you see that same person, they age 20 years. See, it's not a club that you want to be a part of.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, I've never gone through that. Don't want to. Neither have you. And I, in some way, brother, when I help people like Mrs. Coleman and the Coleman family, right? What has happened to her has never happened to my family. But when I help her, it's almost like I feel like I'm beating it back away from my own family. You understand what I'm saying, bro?
Yeah.
Because when your neighbor's house is on fire and you look out the window and you ignore the fire, instead of going to get a bucket of water to try to help to distinguish the fire, not understanding all it takes is one strong gust of wind. And your neighbor's fire becomes your fire. That is the kind of attitude that we have to have when we see our brothers and our sisters suffering. You know, the story in the Bible about the what is, I can't believe this is slipping my mind, the Good Samaritan.
Yeah, the Good Samaritan. There was a gentleman that was attacked.
Yes.
And he was on the side of the road.
He's bleeding from the head. Yes.
Yeah, and he was left there to die.
Right.
You know, one of the higher echelon Negroes of the day passed by, looked at him, walked past him, and one of the religious leaders passed by, looked at him. But this Good Samaritan, the third one, came by, noticed that he was in a bad situation. He picked him up, took him to the inn, and he messed around and not only did he nurse his wound, but he said, I gotta go. So he left money, enough money with the innkeeper to say, look, take care of him till I get back. And if you need something else, I'll take care of it.
I'll take care of it when I get back.
And then that's what Jesus was like, well, who was the greater of these individuals as it relates to dealing with humanity? And of course, they were like the Good Samaritan, because the fact that he saw this need. All these other people had means, and they were supposed to be these, you know, higher echelon and religious folks that are focused on God, but really their actions did not speak to what their words or their perceived lifestyle shared.
Right.
So yeah, I think that you're right, that this lady is being mentally and emotionally beaten. She is scarred.
Yeah, right. The man on the ground in the story of the Good Samaritan was bleeding from the head. So either one of three things happened. Either he had an accident, he was attacked by an animal, or he was attacked by another human being. But either way, the spot where he was considered a dangerous spot. You know, the difference between the Good Samaritan and the others who walked by on the other side is the Good Samaritan was more concerned not about what was going to happen to him if he helped the man on the side of the road. He was more concerned about what was going to happen to the man on the side of the road if he didn't help him. And that is...
I don't think people caught what you just said. You might want to say that again.
Right, exactly.
That what he just said was so...
Instead of being concerned about what's going to happen to you if you help your brother or your sister who's suffering, or how much time is it going to take? You know, how much of my resources is it going to take? Well, it's a little dangerous over in that neighborhood. Instead of being so concerned about what's going to happen to you, we must be like the Good Samaritan and be concerned about what is going to happen if we don't go and help our suffering brothers and sisters.
My God.
And that is the sacrifice,
man,
that Black America has to make if Black America is ever to see Black America's destiny in this country or throughout the diaspora. It's gonna take sacrifice. Freedom is not free. Independence is not free. You don't buy independence with food stamps. You get independence with sacrifice. There are people who shed blood for us to get to this point where we are right now. And you mean to tell me that We can't sacrifice, driving past the Balenciaga store to go spend our money with a black-owned clothing designer. Come on, man.
Yeah.
These are easy sacrifices, but if we're not willing to make those, then we will sentence the next generation to not upwards mobility, but backwards mobility. And we will be cursed in history.
Yeah.
If we do that. Everybody's got to make a sacrifice.
Man, I'm so glad. This is a great segue. I have been talking over the past several weeks, man, about collective unity. I talk about it in my book, but I mean, the only way that we're going to get back to, or not even back to, we're going to get beyond where we've already been, which has been great as far as the sacrifices that have been made to have the advances and gains that we've had, is going to take Black love and collective unity.
Yes, sir.
For us to do that. We got to love ourselves.
Yes, sir.
As Black people.
Yes, sir.
We got to love ourselves.
Yes, sir.
We don't love ourselves collectively, man. We do not love being Black. We want to adapt and assimilate with everybody else's culture, but not embrace who we truly are as a people. And because that was stripped from us, taken away from us, I believe we're the only, and this is just Jeff Boney speaking here, I believe we're the only group, cultural group in this country that has no foundational roots that we're tied to collectively, that we have taken from everybody else's culture, and we celebrate everybody else's traditions.
Yes, sir.
Everybody else's holidays.
Yes, sir.
We even celebrating St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo. I mean, ain't nothing wrong with doing that. People want a chance, mostly to drink and celebrate that way. But when it comes to stuff like Kwanzaa, something created by a Black man, many of us shun that and find a reason not to support it.
Yes, sir.
I don't hear any Black folks saying, man, we don't need to be celebrating St. Patrick's Day. We don't need to be celebrating Hanukkah or Christmas, or we don't need to be celebrating Cinco de Mayo. We run towards that. We make memes and jokes and celebrations about that, parties around it.
Yes, sir.
But when it comes to Juneteenth, Kwanzaa, Black History Month, it's like we try to find a reason not to do it. And I believe it's because we don't love ourselves,
yes, sir.
One, and we have not bought into collective unity as a people. And until that happens, Brother Deric, and you talk all the time about the things that I'm talking about as well, man, as it relates to economics, as it relates to education, as it relates to changing our community dynamic. And I believe, man, that if we can bring all these groups together, there are all these groups out here that are seemingly doing some of the work that can change our overall communities, but we're not working together.
Yes, yes, yes. Because we as a people have been westernized, and we've been taught a philosophy of individualism, whereas we see everything as a competition before we see it as a collaboration. But if you really study our history, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that history is best qualified to reward the researcher, right? If you look at our history, our most significant accomplishments have come through our collective work. Our most significant accomplishments. If you believe that the civil rights movement was a significant movement, you cannot deny the collective work, right? Dr. King may have been the face, but it was really the Black sisters who were the organizing forces behind the brothers too, obviously, but I mentioned the sisters because the sisters always get left out, right? And when you dismiss the Black woman from the struggle, you've created another struggle within the struggle. You understand what I'm saying? When you look at the Black Power movement, it was collective activity. When you look at the Nation of Islam and all of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was able to accomplish over a period of decades, collective activity. When you look at the 1995 Million Man March, where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called for 1 million men to come to Washington, D.C. on a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
On a Monday.
1 million black men.
1 million black men, thank you.
Yeah.
On a Monday, right?
Yeah.
And all of the civil rights organizations told you can't hold no march on a Monday. Nearly 2 million men answered the call. And of those 2 million men, though the call was made by a Muslim minister, 85% of the black men who turned up on the Washington Mall were Christian brothers. It was a collective action, right? So all of our greatest accomplishments, our greatest moments have been executed with us when we were on the same page, when we've decided that we're gonna meet on common ground, right? And our greatest fumbles have been when we tried to isolate this group and that group and do it separately. When are we gonna get it? We are stronger together than we are apart. But as long as the Willie Lynch mentality is allowed to live beyond its years, when the Willie Lynch letter was written and the meeting took place, some say it was false, some say it was real. I say it was effective either way.
Right.
Right. They said that if you follow these principles on how to divide the slave, don't kill him now, because when you kill him, you are killing valuable employees, right?
Right.
Yeah, no. Just keep them divided.
You're getting rid of an asset.
Exactly. And he said that these principles will last for 300 years. Do you know that the 300 years has already come and gone? But the mindset still remains because the ex-slave still didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
That you Negroes are stronger together than you are apart.
Yeah.
So what they do is they isolate the strong one. That's what they're trying to do to Kyrie. They're trying to isolate, Kyrie.
Yeah.
And if we can isolate Kyrie, and if we can punish Kyrie, if we can sentence him to, what's Kyrie's jersey number? Do you know? I don't know.
I can't think of it right.
Whatever his jersey number, let's say his jersey number is number 25. We sentence him to 25 lashes for speaking out of turn. Okay?
And he didn't even speak out of turn. He just shared a video.
Exactly. He didn't even say nothing.
He didn't even say nothing. He just retweeted a video.
Right. Then the brother apologized. Then the apology wasn't good enough.
And he gave money.
Yeah. But that is because they are counting on their ability to isolate him from his people and us not come to his defense. They are counting on the rest of the black NBA players to stay in their place and not say anything in defense of Kyrie or make any kind of moves in defense of Kyrie. They know that the game is going to go on. When the whistle blows, the other black ball players are going to continue to play while we punish this one right over here.
Like they did college.
Yeah, that day has got to end.
Yeah.
Because, listen, if 20% of the black basketball players in the NBA said that we're not playing until Kyrie is allowed back on the court, I guarantee you that leverage would have been enough for them to leave that brother alone. But they're counting on our division. They count on our self-hatred. They count on our low self-esteem. When they project their budgets at the beginning of the year, we know we're gonna sell this amount of this particular product this year because black people's self-esteem is at an all-time low. So we know they're gonna spend their money on this thing to make their hair look straighter or this thing to make their skin look lighter. We keep these folk rich with our low self-esteem. But what we don't understand is our low self-esteem comes from the traumatization of failures. But our failures come from our lack of unity. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that 95% of our problems, I don't care what the problem is, 95% of those problems can be solved if we would just unify and bring our resources together. So we have to study our history, my brother, and recognize that our greatest wins have come when we were unified.
Yeah.
But our greatest fumbles have come when we have been disunified, and that ain't gonna never change.
And you know what? Going back to Kyrie and that situation, I think about immediately you had commentators, black commentators, high profile ones, like Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal, that came out lashing him.
Yes.
And saying that he was wrong and just vilifying him and all it. And all the brother did was share a tweet. That's all he did was share a tweet of a movie that he did not create.
Right.
That he did not create. And it's, to my knowledge, it was shown in a movie theater owned by Shaquille.
Right. One of his detractors.
Well, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So it's interesting that, to your point, we got black people that are like, you saw the movie Life, where you had, what's his name? Hoppin' Bob, I think his name was, the one with the shotgun.
With the gun line boss.
The gun line boss, yeah. You got people like that in our community. Not just today, I'm talking about past and present.
Yes, sir.
Even during slavery.
Yes, sir.
You had those when you had the Harriet Tubmans and others of the world, like, man, we gonna get free. We're gonna have a revolution. We're gonna rise up against our oppressors. And you had those that would go to master, say, hey man, let me tell you, like Steven from Django, let me tell you what's really going on. And they jump in there, man, and try to quelch our collective unity and our progression as a people, man. And I think that you're so on point, Brother Deric. But you know, it's hurtful to me, and I remain optimistic.
Yes, sir.
Because I've studied history and I've seen from whence we've come, and because of that, I know that it can happen where we can come together collectively in unity, and we can get back to loving ourselves. But it's going to take a remnant of us, just like with the Montgomery bus boycott. It was like 13 folks that met in that AME church and planned and organized, including sisters, that organized. And it wasn't just Dr. King, like you say. It wasn't just the face. Yeah. It was people that were on the ground, organizing, planning, putting their resources together, sacrificing their time, their talent, and their treasure in order to improve the conditions of everybody black.
Yes.
They didn't talk to everybody black in the city. They didn't talk to everybody that was rich or poor in the city. They didn't talk to everybody who believed in the struggle to try to be. Some people were, black people were okay with riding in the back of the bus.
Right.
Some people just settled. But then you had those that was like, there's a bigger picture. And so I'm gonna do it for them. Even if they don't feel it, they don't see it. I remember, what's the gentleman that started Godfather's Pizza that ran for president? Herman Cain. I remember Herman Cain, when he said he was attending, I want to say it was Morehouse, and he said that he wanted to join the struggle and he wanted to fight against the oppression. And his daddy told him, nah, don't do that. If it happens whereby things change, then you win, but don't put yourself in a situation that you could be negatively impacted. So his daddy was willing to allow others to fight for their freedom.
Right.
And they benefit from it, but them not sacrifice.
Right.
Or put their lives on the line in order to make that happen. And I just, man, am challenged with the fact that you got all these groups, all these individuals out here, and because of pride, ego, whatever, wanting to be the one who get the credit.
Right.
The one that out front, out on top. You know, that's a problem for me, bro. That's a huge freaking problem for me because we could do so much together. if we don't get concerned about who gets the credit.
Right. Yes, sir. I agree. You know, there are some people who will poke a hole in the boat just because they can't be the captain. You know, and when you look at Kyrie Irving's situation, you know, Kyrie Irving has always been somewhat of an independent thinker, especially for an NBA player, right? When you think about the average NBA player, he's pretty much typecast, right?
Yeah.
Got a little money, stays away from controversial issues, and does what he's told. When Kyrie Irving made a personal decision, a health decision, that he did not wish to take the jab, that's what they call it, the jab, right? He didn't want to do that. That was strike one. That was strike one. And it had nothing to do with COVID, health, or anything of that nature. It had everything to do with these people's sick perception that no matter how hard you've worked to be an accomplished ball player, you wouldn't be who you are if they didn't open the gate for you.
Yeah.
See, these type of people like to play God. They really believe that your blessings come from them. Not from God, not from Allah, not from Jesus, Negro. Your blessings come from me.
I am your God.
And when you decide to step outside of the bounds of what I tell you to do, then I have the right or the power to take away your blessings. And it's just as simple as them wanting to show control over him. They say sometimes, you know, you don't kill a fly with a sledgehammer because it takes that much to kill a fly. You kill a fly with a sledgehammer because other flies are watching. See, they have to try and hang Kyrie on a cross because other ball players are watching. If we keep letting him get away with being independent as a thinker and bucking the system and doing his own thing, then what's gonna happen? What did Bob McNair say? You're gonna let the inmates, you know, take over the prison.
Yeah.
So it is a matter of keeping control over paid slaves. And I'm not insulting our brothers who play professional sports by calling them slaves. I'm not saying to you, brother, that, you know, nigga, you a slave. And you know, I'm not trying to be insulting. But what I am trying to do is enlighten them as to how they are viewed by those who cut their paychecks. That's how they see you. They see you as a well-paid slave, a $40 million slave. A brother wrote a book called $40 Million Slaves. And my question is, how much money does it take in order to be a man? How much money do I have to be able to speak my own convictions without your consent? How much money does it take? Well, if having $50 million, $100 million is not enough for me to be able to speak with a man's voice, then I may as well not have the money. Right.
Man, you preaching, bro.
My brother, we gotta have a come to Jesus meeting with us. Black people's problem is that we're not focused enough on black people. That's our problem. And we're not focused enough on upward mobility through collective action. If we want success in the political process, we got to vote in the block, collective action behind the black agenda. You're not going to get around that. Okay. If we want to win economically, we have to keep the black dollar circulating in the black community, meaning you got to say, you got to have a gang mentality. You know how a Crip only wear blue? A blood only wear red? a gangster disciple only wears his hat a certain way. I don't know how that goes. Right. But I spend my money with my people first.
Yeah.
Unapologetically.
And why not?
Exactly. The Asian community doesn't have to explain that.
No.
The Latino community doesn't have to explain that. Mm-hmm. The Jewish community, you bet not ask them to have to explain it. Why do we have to explain it? Why does it make me an outlier? Because I love myself and my people enough to spend my hard-earned dollars with the Forward Times newspaper first.
Yeah.
Everybody's putting themselves first.
Everybody.
And we're still trying to integrate.
Yeah.
See, integration, if you really look deep into it, my brother, integration is really...
So-called integration.
So-called integration. Yeah. It was really an exercise in lack of love for self and lack in confidence in our ability to be able to survive and thrive among one another. Why would you as a business, if you're the CEO of your own corporation, you own it 100%, right? Why would you want to integrate with another company? Because you think that merging, they call it a merger. You think that merging with that company makes your company more powerful.
Yeah.
So what you do is you relinquish some of your ownership rights to become more powerful.
Yeah.
We really thought we
were integrating.
That going to school with, being able to go to school with white people, being able to go to, restaurants with white people, being able to be buried in the same cemetery with white people, being able to go to the same toilets now. Yeah. And we really thought that was going to make us more powerful.
Wow. Come on, man.
It became a failed experiment.
Yeah.
That did not make us more powerful. So what's our next move? We're going to look for another people to try to integrate with?
The Black and Brown Coalition.
You understand what I'm saying? No. The move was to integrate with your own.
Yes.
That was the move.
Right.
The move was to be self-sufficient and independent. That was the move. The move was to separate your operations from your oppressor. Mm-hmm. You become self-sufficient. Now, that don't mean we can't do business with other communities.
Right.
But we can't do business with other communities if we have to sacrifice our own agenda.
Mm-hmm. And dignity.
Exactly. So not only was integration an exercise in futility, it was an act of lack of self-love.
Wow. I never even looked at it that way.
That's what it was. And my grandmother didn't see it that way either, because she fought for it. She did her best. This is not an indictment on our grandparents, because many of them really thought that they were doing what was best for us.
Yes.
But it just didn't work out.
And low key, we were forced into separation and were separated because of these segregationist policies. It forced us to live amongst ourselves, to educate ourselves, to support ourselves economically. We had our own, if you talk about Black Wall Street, they had bus lines, they had hotels, they had nightclubs, they had schools, they had hospitals, they had all of this stuff in that area.
Right. And this happened during the height of what they call segregation.
And Jim Crow.
Right. And see, it goes back to what you were saying about collective activity. Mm-hmm. See, we made so many gains during that period of time because we were forced to only spend our money in Black-owned businesses because they didn't want our dollars back then.
They didn't want us.
Exactly. And see,
if they couldn't use us as enslaved people,
well, they didn't want us to be around them.
Yeah, they didn't want.
They did not want us involved in their social equality.
Right.
So if I can't buy my cup of black coffee from this white-owned restaurant, I'm forced to go to my own. Mm-hmm. But that Black-owned coffee shop was strong, bro.
Yeah.
And guess what? The food tastes better anyway.
Yeah.
The food tastes better anyway.
Right.
Like, okay, and this is not to denigrate our brothers and sisters who did sit-ins, But it puzzled me as to how you could go to Woolworths, that's what they called it back then, and you sit at the counter and you say, I am American too. I am black, but I'm American too. And I don't care what you say, I'm gonna sit here until you serve me some coffee. This is what they're saying in the white-owned business. And you got, white supremacists standing around them, spitting in their faces and spit. Okay.
Ketchup, mustard.
Now, if they'll spit in your face, what do you think they'll do to your coffee? So the coffee that you're demanding that they bring you really gonna drink it, bro? Are you really gonna drink it, sister? See, anytime they gotta create a law for somebody to consider you their equal or their brother, that ain't your brother. That ain't your brother.
Yeah.
But all along, we didn't realize that we were the wave. We didn't realize that we were, as the young people, lit. We were the lit people. We didn't realize that we were the ones that brought the soul to America. We didn't realize that we were good enough.
We were the envy.
We didn't realize it.
Yeah.
We didn't realize our own beauty. We didn't realize our own power. We did not realize our own direct connection to Almighty God. We didn't see ourselves.
Come on now.
But it don't make no damn sense for us to still not see ourselves in this day and time. We're in 2022.
I want to say something.
Still waiting on poison coffee to be served to us.
I want to say this. I just had the great privilege of going to Kansas City, Missouri, and while there, I went to the Negro League baseball museum.
Yes, sir.
And man, I'll tell you, I felt like I was in heaven. Definitely baseball heaven. I played baseball, loved the game. And I was thinking while I was there, as I was looking at all of the history, Buck O'Neil, Satchel Paige, all of these people who paved the way for Jackie Robinson.
Yes, sir.
To integrate or be the one to integrate blacks into Major League Baseball. And I looked at the imagery and the videos and how they were dressed to the nines.
Yes, sir.
Coming with suits and hats and dresses, and they brought the kids, everybody. It was an experience.
Yes, sir.
It was an experience. And they had so many people that attended these regular baseball games. And they was making money. They were successful. They caught the eye of those that were in Major League Baseball. And what people celebrate in that Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier and went into Major League Baseball, effectively killed the Negro League. And all of that economics. All of the vendors.
Perfect example.
And I sat there and I just was taking all of this history in. And I was just like, my God, look at the power that we had as a people. Look at the draw. Look at what we created. Look at what we created. And look at how successful it is. And then because of one situation whereby we wanted to play with them, we wanted to be with them, it killed us. Whereas we could have been even greater, even more powerful. And it reminds me of what happened at this most recent World Series. And Dusty Baker talked about it. Because there were no African-American born or American-born African-Americans that played, or on the roster, should I say, to play in the World Series.
Really?
Not one.
Ooh.
And he talked about it being an issue and a problem, saying that he played with Hank Aaron and was on deck when he hit his record-breaking home run to beat Babe Ruth. And he talked about all of the think of all the black players that played in Major League Baseball. Think of all the ones that played for the Astros.
Yeah.
And not one played for the Phillies on the roster, and not one played for the Astros on the roster.
Wow.
And I say all that to say that integration that brought Jackie Robinson into Major League Baseball. Fast forward this many years later, and where are our black players?
Well, that's interesting. It kind of reminds me of how integration was made law, and so you had all these black people that moved to these white neighborhoods, and then white folks moved out. You know how they white flight.
White flight.
Only for them to come right back around and gentrify, or some say regentrify.
Right.
Those same neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it's as if you had a black baseball league that was owned outright by us, very successful, and you had the white league, which had less soul, right? Mm-hmm. They integrated the two, but then came right back around and regentrified it, and now you don't even have a black presence in baseball like that.
Yeah.
Anymore. We went from having our own league to there being no presence at all. If that don't sound like a trick,
right.
I don't know.
A magic trick.
But that's a trick, bro.
Yeah.
That's a trick. And the trick starts with this notion, right? One thing that white America has always been successful at doing is thoroughly convincing black people that we need them. Mm-hmm. Thoroughly convincing them. They probably convinced the Black Negro League owners that they needed the big leagues. Hey man, you want to grow to the next level, right? You know, but really it was the big leagues that needed them. Because they had the best players. You know, black people put soul into anything we do. You know, you put a black woman in there, she can make a baking a cake entertaining. You understand what I'm saying? And as long as we can allow them to convince us that we need them, we will always be their perpetual underling, perpetual slaves. It's like the black NBA ball players. They don't want to get behind Kyrie the way that they could because they need the Jewish owner. We need, not understanding that without you ain't no game. And if it ain't no game, ain't no league. And if there ain't no league, ain't no profits. We've always had a problem with recognizing our own worth. And it's like a man who done broke his leg, right? And he been walking with a cane, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. He's been so convinced that the cane is more powerful than his own leg. The boy's leg is all well. It's stronger than it was before he broke it. And he's still out here walking with a cane because he's been convinced that he needs a crutch. All black people need is each other.
Yeah.
That's all we need, bro.
Yeah.
We need each other.
Yeah.
We need a plan. We need an agenda. And we need unity.
Yeah.
And we need to get in touch again with what Minister Farrakhan called the nervous system of Black America. They say, long before there was a Twitter, long before there was Facebook, long before there were even cell phones, if a black man got hung in Mississippi, the black man in Georgia felt it. He didn't even know what happened. He just felt it. See, that's the kind of nervous system that we as a people have to get back in touch with and redevelop our love, our concern, our care for one another, and our willingness to sacrifice so that the next generation don't suffer from the same thing. We don't have to wrestle with the same damn alligator that the last generation wrestled with. Yeah. Now the next generation gonna have to wrestle.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't have to wrestle with the same alligator we wrestle with.
But we need to teach them how to wrestle and how to win.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. Your book, New Rules, man, how can people pick it up? I know I wanted to delve into that, but I'm gonna have to have you back to talk about New Rules again. But this has been this is the conversation that needed to happen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so how can people pick up the book, man?
Man, you can pick up my new book, New Rules, at www.truthtrafficker.com. That's truth, 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 trafficker, TRAFFICKER.com. Truth Trafficker.
And in 30 seconds or less, what's the book about?
The book is about my perspective on what we need to do to become independent, strong, and powerful as a people in every aspect, in economics, in education, in politics, when it comes to the streets, when it comes to the community. I break down my perspective on what we need to do collectively in order to become independent and powerful.
Man, thank you so much, Brother Deric, for being on Real Talk Junkies as always. Man, I enjoyed in depth to come. I'm gonna go back and watch this again myself and get these nuggets, man. I appreciate you so much. I want to encourage everybody again to go check out forwardtimes.com, the latest news. We appreciate you, man. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you get a subscription. We'll mail it to your home or your office. Also, JeffreyLBoney.com to get my latest book, Don't Argue With Me, a no-nonsense approach to the issues in the Black community. And of course, happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you and your families. God bless.